Hi, Karen. Hi, Sid. Hi, Wendy. Hi, Jeff.
Hello there.
Hi, Kimberly.
And Taylor.
Hi, Taylor.
Hello, everyone.
Hi.
Really
Well,
nice seeing people's faces.
mhm. Yeah, we love it. Well, I think we should go ahead and get started, and then I can add people as they come in. But I'm going to share my screen for a little bit. A quick Zoom rules for those of you who might be new or you need a refresher. I am going to There we go. Okay, so please mute yourself when you're not speaking. We recommend speaker view for presentation. Video sharing is optional, though we love to see all your smiling faces. And you can type any questions or comments into the chat. We'll also have time where you can unmute yourself and ask any questions and interact with our guest speaker. Now is the time to connect. And we love doing these lunch and learns each week for that purpose. So you're definitely welcome to unmute yourself, especially if our guest speaker, Carolyn, if you'd like to ask our guests to unmute themselves, you totally can too. We'll just go with the flow today, everyone. So we want to connect and take this time, and I'll monitor the chat if you have, if you would rather communicate through that, and I'll read off any of your questions or comments. A quick update from Autism Tree. We now have over 400 new families who have joined our Autism Tree family since January 1st, who have filled out an intake form for our programs for their entire family to join our programming. And this is just an influx. A lot of you who have been a part of Autism Tree for a while, you know that we intook 767 brand new families all of last year, and we're already hitting 400 in June. So at the beginning of June. So welcome to all of our new families. We're so happy to have you as a part of our community, and we're really excited to connect you to our programs. If you know Autism Tree, you know we offer 20 programs. Right now we're in kind of a state of flux a little bit. We might be limiting some of our programming because of a staff shortage. However, I just hired somebody new, great news. So we are working on keeping all of our programming as much as we can. That being said, we still have 18 upcoming events coming up in June and July. So check our social media for any announcements or updates on our programming and all of that. Events this week, I'm really excited to have our third annual Autism Tree Little Free Library opening ceremony here in San Diego at Westminster Park in Point Loma. One of our amazing volunteers, Eric Johnson, is a Boy Scout, and he, for his Eagle Scout Award, created our third Little Free Library. We also have another one in Point Loma, as well as one in SDSU College area, and now we're also going to have one in Fallbrook as well. So we're all over San Diego County. So we're really excited to do a little opening ceremony and a picnic celebration. So our families are welcome to come and bring a picnic for them and their family. And we'll have books for our kids to read, and volunteers will be there to help play games and read books with the kids. So it'll be a really fun time this Saturday from 10 to 12 p.m. 10 a.m. to 12 p.m. this Saturday, June 8th. We also have our adaptive dance classes, which happen on a weekly basis. Our community partner, Tap Fever Studios, leads those dance classes for us each week. This week, we have ages 6 through 12. And we have 596, almost 600 videos on our YouTube channel within the past 4 years since the pandemic. We've really expanded our reach online, and you're welcome to subscribe to get any notifications for our videos that are happening. We post videos from volunteers, these lunch and learns every single week. Our Global Neurodiversity Conference was just coming up on Friday, November 8th this year. We post all of those videos. on our YouTube channel, so you can stay connected to our community that way as well. And this is our 100, we have 146 of those lunch and learns are uploaded on YouTube. You can go back and watch any of those guest speakers just like today. And so I'm going to introduce Caroline Turner. Caroline is the founder of Quirky Buds, and I am so grateful for Caroline for making time today to meet all of you. She's coming from New Orleans, I believe. And I got to give a special shout out to Sid. And Sid, I'm sorry, I'm blanking on your last name, but Sid, I met Sid in early, I think this year in January or February at one of our beach cleanups at Purpose First Beach Cleanup that we partnered with earlier this year to do beach cleanups with our families. And Sid was a volunteer there, and he reached out and he said to me, and we were talking about Caroline, and he said, I would love to have you meet Caroline. And I'm really excited. And once I met Caroline, I absolutely fell in love with her, which I know you guys will too. So I'm going to pass it off to Caroline. Thanks so much for being here, and we're so excited to learn from you today.
Thank you, Rebecca. I'm so happy to be here with you guys, and shout out to Sid as well for making this happen. I'm gonna share my screen and also do this presenter mode. There we go. But as Rebecca said, my name is Caroline Turner. I am in New Orleans as of right now. I previously lived in Texas for about 12 years and have been a licensed social worker since 2013. And so I'm thrilled to be here with you all and talk a little bit about friendship, kind of overall, and then also about Quirky Buds. And I really like to be like casual and not just listen to myself talk. So please like feel free to put in the chat whatever you want, or unmute yourself and interrupt me, because I'd much rather have like a discussion than just talk at y'all, because that's kind of gets kind of old. So anyway, but a quick like overview, because I feel like it's helpful for me to know what I'm doing. I'm gonna do just some intros. So I already told you who I was, but a little bit more about my background. I'd love to take a moment, and you don't have to unmute yourself, but like maybe put in the chat who you are, you know, how you found Autism Tree, you know, why you were interested in this, anything like that, just so that we can get to know each other a little bit better would be awesome. I'm going to talk just a broad overview about kind of the research that around friendship, and a little bit around friendship and neurodiversity, and then a tiny bit on relationships. Just because as I've been doing Quirky Buds now, these questions have come up and I'm like, oh, this is interesting. And then Quirky Buds, what is it? Why did I start this? What's going on with it? Where are we? All those kinds of questions. And then discussion or final thoughts. But as I said, like shout out or chat or whatever. It's just much more fun that way. Okay. And then just a note on language, because I feel like this is something that, you know, I go back and forth on. I am a social worker, as Rebecca said, and so often we're trained to use this person first language in terms of just, you know, a person with autism, a child with autism. And so I just like to give a note, because I know that there's been kind of a shift in really using identity first language. And so I will, in this presentation, usually go back and forth on those two. And I want to be respectful of people that really like identity first language, and just tell you that that's my professionalism coming out when I do the person first, but I'll go back and forth on that. So, okay, intros. Oh yes, I already have a chat. Thank you so much, Jeff. I appreciate you. So basically, just to, as I said, I'm Caroline. I am a licensed social worker in Louisiana and actually in Texas as well. I work at a hospital here in the Developmental Behavioral Pediatric Clinic, which is a clinic that does new diagnoses of autism. And that's what I did in Texas for the last 4 years. I actually, before that, worked for the Autism Society of Texas. I worked for schools. I worked for an ABA clinic for a short stint. And so for the last, you know, I don't know how many years now, 15 years or so, autism has been a real passion of mine. And people always ask me like, oh, you must have a family member, or, you know, kind of, why did you get into this work? And really, I got put on for a research study in college. That's was my first introduction to autism. And I just found this community to be so welcoming and also really misunderstood. And so I felt really passionate about just wanting to be, you know, helping this community. I went to graduate school to be a social worker and said, like, I'm gonna work with people with autism. And I remember one of my professors said, like, I don't know if you're gonna do that. I was like, okay, well, I'll figure it out, don't worry. So that has been kind of my path, and been working with this community and learning from this community since about 2008 or so. But anyway, okay. So who are y'all? I was gonna do this Minty Me thing, but I think if you just put it in the chat or unmute yourself if you want, that'd be cool. Or chat it out, whatever works, just so we know a little bit more about who's here.
I'd love to do that right now, for anybody who wants to. Oh, I love it. Okay. You can unmute yourself too, but I'll start with Jeff, and of course, you can, why don't we just have Jeff? Why don't you speak up right now?
Thank you, Rebecca. So Caroline, my name is Jeff Snyder. I am an autism neurodiversity ambassador and public speaker, based in Massachusetts, on the Massachusetts Rhode Island border. I've been affiliated with Autism Tree for about 5 years now, if you can believe that. I have a business called Going the Distance, where I offer trainings and speaking engagements that are related to neurodiversity in families, education, and employment.
Awesome. I'm gonna check that out after this. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Jeff is like an East Coast liaison for us and one of our awesome rock star volunteers. And I'm so happy. Jeff usually comes and visits us in San Diego a few times a year, once a year, and we're just so happy to have him on our team. So
Yeah, that's awesome.
just wanted to add that. And then Karen Wright, Karen is our volunteer director of our ministry. So any families who are coming into crisis or who are just going through a really hard time, I reach out to Karen, and Karen calls them, leaves a prayer message and prays with them over the phone if they'd like. And she also partners with one of our local churches, and she sends prayer quilts to our families as well. And so
Amazing.
I think Karen might have like difficulties with the audio, but
Okay, no worries. Yeah.
we love Karen, and she is just so important to our families and to our community. And then Terrence, I'll read what you wrote, Terrence, and then I'd love for you to speak up too. His disability is autism. He says, my disability is autism, and so I was passionate about music because music really helps me express myself. Terrence, I'd love for you to say hi to Caroline.
Oh, hello.
Hi, Terrence. I'm terrible at
Thank
music,
you.
so
I've been to Louisiana for many years ago. It's
awesome.
nice because I love the jazz.
Have you been to
so
Jazz
much.
Fest?
And I played the trombone.
Awesome. I love that.
And so I live in Chula Vista, California.
Cool.
And yeah, so that's where I'm from there.
I love
And
it.
tell Caroline where you're going to school right now, Terrence.
Oh, so I go to Berkeley College of Music because I'm doing the online program, and I recently got accepted just 2 years ago.
Oh my gosh, amazing. Congrats.
Oh, thanks. Because I've been
Welcome.
working. So my major is Bachelor of Arts in Music Composition for Film, TV, and Games.
Amazing. Congrats.
Thanks.
Mhm.
I'm so happy you're here, Terrence.
So 3 years ago, I've been doing the Meet the Instrument series, the San Diego Symphony.
Wow, it's already been 3 years. That's right.
Yes.
So
I was, you know.
yeah.
Yes.
Caroline, if you go onto our YouTube channel, you could see a whole playlist of Terrence's.
I'm passionate about music.
I love it. I will check it out.
Okay.
Thank you for being
Nice
here.
to meet you, Caroline.
Nice to meet you too.
Good luck.
And then Taylor, he said you're at Path now, and she shares resources with families and individuals. So Taylor, thanks
Awesome.
for being here. Kimberly says, I've been following Autism Tree for a few years. I have 2 kids who were diagnosed with autism as teens, one 6 years ago and another last month. I'm looking for more info and support for my newly diagnosed 16-year-olds. Awesome. Thanks, Kimberly. You want to say hi? Let me know. Chime in. And then Arwa, I hope I'm saying your name right. She says, I'm a parent of a child of autism and I wear many hats. I bet you do.
I'm sure. Cool. Well, that's awesome. I'm so grateful for you guys taking some time just to tell me, you know, who you are and what's going on. This is such a good community. I feel like just listening to Rebecca at the beginning go through all the things, I'm like, y'all are busy people. So I'm happy to be here with you and appreciate y'all taking time out. Okay, so just, you know, I love a good friends shout out. So just a kind of moment to talk about an overview about friendship and talking about why friendship is important, right? You know, I feel like this has been something that from a young age, I know, now I'm very outgoing, but when I was little, it was not the case. And so, I struggled to make friends, and this has been kind of an interest of mine, for a while as well, but friendship is important, right? We all can probably agree to that. It really affects our developmental, our self-esteem overall, and really the way that we kind of grow and learn. People who have stronger communities are actually been, the research tells us that they live longer. So, it's important to kind of help with our development. And friendship, you know, especially for individuals with autism, can be sometimes a little bit harder to find, depending on, you know, where we are, or to have some of those more kind of common interests or kind of common times to hang out. And that being said, you know, I feel like social skills is something that I don't know about y'all, we kind of go back and forth on, but it's really often recommended. And it can sometimes, like the research tells us, it can sometimes improve social outcomes, but it doesn't necessarily improve friendships, because it's not necessarily, oh, sorry, y'all kind of got over on my second screen. Because, you know, it's not necessarily something that's really focused on neurodiversity affirming. It's more kind of how we as neurotypicals interact. And so sometimes when we teach social skills, we're not necessarily, or we're trying to like fit people into our box instead of like really helping folks be who they are. And so I don't know about y'all, but social skills in general is something that we've kind of moved away from, at least at the Bow Center where I work now, and just kind of in general around that type of really trying to teach exactly what social neurotypicals expect. That being said, you know, it is something that we want to try to have all individuals have quality friends. That's kind of like what we're looking for when we talk about friendship outcomes, these outcomes that I was talking about that really improve our self-esteem, and not necessarily quantity. So we want to have close friendships and have a good quality. And the most of the important things when we think about when we talk about friendship are having equal status. So no, the kind of like this power dynamic isn't there, but people are on an equal playing field, which also is like a mutual respect. We have common interests, so we like the same things. Like I always, as you just kind of talked about, Terrence, I'm terrible at music. I like music, but like it's not going to be my like big common interest with somebody, right? But like I would go see you play, but I probably wouldn't be able to vibe with you as well as somebody who really likes music more.
Oh, that's fine.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
so you're talking to me?
Yeah, I was talking to you. Yeah.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah. Just when
Yeah,
we talk about
that's my
common
interest.
interests, you know? Yeah. And so really trying to find something specific that we can connect on. And then the frequency of interaction. So to have a close friendship, right, we have to be interacting pretty frequently, which can sometimes be hard. And or, you know, can move into now also virtual opportunity, as we learned during COVID. Other research just kind of tells us that, as I mentioned, people with strong social connections do live longer. It's not a total like surprise, but loneliness can really lead to depression and anxiety, which can be really overwhelming for any individual, but can be hard to then also have this like almost self-fulfilling prophecy of like, man, I haven't made friends in the past. I'm not successful in making friends, and so I'm just not going to try anymore. Which kind of is like this self-fulfilling prophecy, right? That then can lead to this moment of like even more loneliness, even more depression. I once worked with an individual who had really bad social anxiety, and one of the things that, you know, one of the ways that people sometimes make friends now online is through the app called Bumble BFF. I don't know if anybody's heard of that, but it's like Bumble, which is a dating app, but you can also use it to make friends. And so I was really trying to get her just to get on Bumble BFF to see that there were other people looking for friends, to just try to like normalize this experience, right? There's so many people looking for friends. That's not, you know, uncommon. But she really didn't even want to try that. She was too worried about kind of putting herself even on the app to see. She wasn't sure that people were actually also out there looking for friends. And that can really lead to this like kind of self-fulfilling prophecy of like, okay, well, we're just not going to try. And that can be obviously very hard. And so really we want to try to build, you know, these strong friendships with common interest, repeated interaction. And then a lot of times, one of the things that I always think is funny is like, we tend to gravitate towards people who are the same as us. So like, I'm originally from the Midwest. That's where I grew up. And so when I meet someone from the Midwest, I'm immediately like, woo! Like, we're from the Midwest. I don't even know why I don't like the Midwest like all that much, but I think it's something that like, it's just like, we have the same background, we understand each other on a different level. And so that's true too, when we're like looking for friendships, trying to make friends, right? Briefly on romantic relationships, this is kind of an old, like, what do I want to say? It's from 2016, so it's kind of outdated, but it's interesting to just think about, right? I know Love on the Spectrum, I don't know how people feel about that, but I know that show kind of increased this like conversation around autistic adults and marriage, or dating and like what that looks like. Some folks don't want to get married, that's totally fine, but sometimes, you know, if that's what we're looking for, kind of what the research is telling us is that autistic people prefer to date autistic people or end up dating autistic people. That doesn't necessarily, again, this is from 2016, things could have changed, but that's kind of what we lean towards when we talk about romantic relationships as well. And then, you know, talking about it's Pride Month, so also kind of this idea around LGBTQIA, the idea that there's lots of research to kind of suggest that people on the spectrum, you know, also are more likely to be gender diverse, and about 70% of autistic individuals identify as sexually diverse. So that's not, you know, again, there's still lots of stuff coming up. This is from 2021. Okay, so we're in 3 years. But just like, you know, something to think about too when we're talking about finding partners of romantic interest, if that's what we want. We know autistic men are about 3 times more likely to identify as bisexual than non-autistic men, and autistic females are about 3 times more likely to identify as queer more than non-autistic individuals. Any thoughts on this or on the friendship thing before I?
It's really fascinating. I had no idea. This is the first time I'm hearing about this, but this is amazing.
Yeah, something to think about. I don't know. I saw Taylor come back on. I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you were gonna say.
I just was like, oh, I probably should be nice and put my video back on now that we're.
Oh, okay, no worries. I always am like, I'm not gonna call people out, and then I do, so you know. Okay, so talking about Quirky Buds, which this will all tie together, I promise. But Quirky Buds is an organization that I started. It's been just 2 years ago now, April of 2022, and essentially I was working, as I mentioned, in Austin at a hospital there, in a clinic for individuals newly diagnosed, doing new diagnosis of autism. And I kept hearing from parents like, man, I just like, do you know anybody in our area that also is, you know, has a 6-year-old that also likes, I don't know, dinosaurs, right? And in my head, I'm like, I actually do know a lot of people that live near you that are in the similar situation, but I can't tell you because of HIPAA. And so, you know, which is the kind of privacy law, if not familiar with that, is connected to hospital systems. And so I was really getting frustrated. I was feeling like, what am I going to do about this? Because this is a conversation that keeps coming up. And I had asked like years before, I was working at a nonprofit, and I had messaged actually Bumble, the dating app, and said like, hey, would you guys do a like you have Bumble BFF, you have Bumble dating, you have Bumble business. Would you do like a Bumble neurodiversity or Bumble like autism focus? Because this question keeps coming up and I'm just like trying to find a way to support these families. And they were basically like, that's a great idea. Thanks for writing in. Moving on. And I never heard from them again. So, and I was living in Austin at the time, you know, which is like a tech hub. So I was also like, okay, like, let me ask around some friends here if they like know of anything like this, right? Because it seems like it wouldn't be that hard. And essentially, they were all like, that's a great idea, but yeah, it would be really expensive. So I kind of just let it lie. I was like, all right, whatever. And then in April of 2022, right, we're in the middle still of the pandemic, kind of, it was when we're kind of coming out of it, but still in it. And so we were doing virtual support groups at the time. And I had this mom get on the group. She was the only one that showed up to the group. And she was like, I just came on here because I was looking for a friend for my teenager and was hoping that like another mom was going to be on. And I was just feeling so frustrated. So that night I was like, you know, alone in my home as you are during COVID, and was like, okay, I'm going to just like do it. So, as a social worker too, I don't have a lot of tech stuff, but I just got on GoDaddy.com, bought a domain name, and was like, let's see what happens, right? And that's really how Quirky Buds was born. And now, you know, like this is like kind of comes back. The way that we were focused, that I was like focused on starting Quirky Buds too, was really focused on those friendship things. So we're talking about interest, age, and location. And that's really what I was like, okay, this is how people make friends. This is how I know friendship works. So this is what we need to be doing. So Quirky Buds ask questions based on what do you as the individual or your child like? What are their big interests, right? We have some preloaded in there, but you can write whatever you want in terms of like, what is it that we're really passionate about? What is your age? I know kind of like going back, right? Like I will sometimes have folks say like, well, like obviously biological age is not always the same as mental age. Totally true. However, at the same time, kind of going back to that like power differential, right? Or this mutual respect. It is hard to have like, you know, a 16-year-old be friends with a 10-year-old. It's just not as like kind of, you know, when we're in the world, red flags go up for some people, right? So even though, yes, that's kind of like, we do not necessarily want to just be on biological age, we still do age as a way to kind of make sure that we have this mutual respect or less of a power differential. And then location, because as I said, kind of the beginning, this like repeated interaction or the opportunity to have repeated interaction is definitely important to build strong friendships. One of the ways that, again, kind of going back, that we can do that now is virtual, which is awesome. So we did add in a way to opt for virtual friends if that feels more comfortable, or just like based on transportation, that's easier for folks. Okay, this is from our last year's data. So just like know that it has changed a tiny bit, but this is kind of where we are at with Quirky Buds currently in terms of our numbers. I share this because I get asked this question a lot, like, okay, well, what are the ages? So our youngest right now is 2. We call them the Quirky Tots. And then all the way through Quirky Adults, our oldest is 75. So I, you know, started this, like I said, it's been a little over 2 years. And within the first couple months, it was like really blowing up. And I'm going to share the numbers with you. Blowing up for me, blowing up compared to Autism Tree is a little bit less, but you know, for what we're doing, it's still exciting. But that being said, you know, we're growing each week, and our oldest is 75, as mentioned. And so, but that would happen within the first like 2 weeks of having like this large age span kind of people join. And to me, that was like, man, people are looking for friendship, right? At every stage of life. This is an ongoing kind of want or need. And so really I was like, great, why would we limit kind of the age, which is a question I often get. And then this caregiver slot is one that we added in, and Sid's on here. He probably would remember more than I would, but Sid is somebody who's been helping me since pretty much the beginning. But caregivers is basically, we added that in because we had people asking like, I want to just like sign up as a parent or a caregiver and get connected to another parent or caregiver. So we added that in and have the questions be a little bit more about like, are you looking for, you know, future kind of questions? Are you looking to talk about school? Are you looking to talk about, you know, new diagnoses, and having that be specific to caregivers?
Yeah, it was just a good way to improve the network. Caroline always has good ideas, and I think what's super cool about Quirky Buds, what Caroline does is stuff comes from people, like from suggestions versus, you know, us having to think of ideas. So I think it's a special part of Quirky Buds.
Thank you, Sid. Yeah. Yeah, when we first put it up, I had the forms. If you go to the website, you can see, but I had all the forms kind of together in one. And so if you were an adult, you use the same sheet to sign up as a parent of like a 3-year-old. And I had one adult message me like, this feels really silly because some of the choices, you know, were like bubbles and like, okay, I understand. Yeah, I actually kind of think bubbles are cool still, but that's beside the point. But that, you know, as like an adult, if you're signing up, you're like, I don't really want to see that as a choice. So we really kind of we were like, okay, we're going to separate this, make it, you know, more specific to children versus adults. So as mentioned, not as many as we're working slowly to catch up with y'all, but we currently have over 900 buds signed up in 43 states. So people are always like, wow, like that's really spread out, and that is really spread out. However, we're always growing in kind of different areas, right? And it's almost like the chicken or the egg, like this kind of like growth. Sometimes I'll have parents sign up and I'm like, we don't have a ton of people in your area, but if you just hang on, you know, we'll start to spread the word and get it out there. So we do have a 75% match rate, which means if you sign up, there's a 75% chance that you're going to get at least one bud, if not multiple. So the way that it works is each week, like when we have new people sign up, we kind of match them with Sid's help through AI, and then also through myself, just kind of, you know, scanning to make sure that we're doing an appropriate match and sending you those updates. So basically, the longer you're in the system, the more friends you get each week. And then, you know, this message I got kind of randomly from a parent, and I just like loved it because I was like, this is the whole point of why we started this. But she just said, you know, I wanted to say this entire program is meaningful to my family. My son is in his 2nd year of high school and has not connected with anyone despite our efforts. I came across Quirky Buds and saw another parent post that their kid loves history too. So we connected. Today our kids met and hit it off. We, the parents, are overjoyed. So that was, you know, I was like, yes, this is what we wanted. And like history, I feel like is not an interest that I would share personally. However, like, and not necessarily what I would think as like a teenager would be super interested in, but sure enough, yes, like there was a bud really close to her that was interested in history, and we were able to say like, cool, here you go. And they met up and kind of did that. So that was like the whole point, right? Is to like make this specific interest happen and then have people be able to create friendships offline. Before I do talk about that, I just wanted to say too, you know, I appreciate Dana and Rebecca kind of asked me right before this about like, man, I'm in New Orleans. Like, it seems weird that I'm talking to you all in California, but this is kind of like similar, right? I often get messages from parents saying like, are you going to do any in-person events? And while I would love to do that, it's kind of hard, obviously, being just me and Sid at times, but you know, really trying to do multiple events. And so the point is really not necessarily to do a big event. The point is to say, here's somebody near you that has a similar interest to you know, kind of now be friends offline. So it's not necessarily like we're having these big meetups. It's more like a one-to-one match, and then giving folks the opportunity to kind of find that person near them. Any thoughts or questions about that?
I have thoughts, but I'll share them for after.
Okay. Okay. All right. I wanted to talk briefly about future goals, and then I just wanted to share with y'all, we try to do a highlight one of our buds each month, which we call the bud of the month. And then so if anybody's ever interested in this, we'd love to have you be the bud of the month to talk about like what you're interested in. And then also, we send you a $10 gift card. I know it's not a lot, but you know, to Amazon, so you can get something. But anyway, I was going to share just a short video with you all so you could see our bud of the month from April. But briefly on just future goals, Sid as I mentioned, is like a wonderful volunteer of mine. We're working to hopefully make Quirky Buds a nonprofit, because one of the things that I get asked often is like, you know, how is this continuing? Or when I've talked to people about trying to just get some money to like help, you know, pay the back end, aka Sid, with some of the AI stuff. It's been like difficult to do that, right? And so one of the reasons that I feel strongly about becoming a nonprofit is to really keep Quirky Buds free. The goal is to never charge the families. It's totally free and a free service, because it just feels like, you know, there's lots of things that we have to pay for in the world, and friendship should be something that is a little bit easier to find. And I feel like it's been so difficult at times that this is supposed to be a program that's free and easily accessible. And so, you know, the goal, even when you sign up, is to have the form it's getting a little bit longer, but we try to keep it fairly short. There's no like proof of diagnosis or any kind of question about that. One of the things that I get asked about a lot with that is like, okay, well, is this just for neurodiverse people? And I usually say no. I mean, it's really been open. We started that way, really focused on neurodiverse people. I have some people sign up now that are that will write that they're physically disabled. I have some people that have signed up and just say like, this seems cool, I just want to make inclusive friends. And so really the goal is to make this like easily accessible and free, so that people can join and find people near them that like whatever you like. Okay, I'm going to, if I can figure this out. Okay. Show one. This is our bud of the month from this month. Her name's Aubrey. It's real short, it's just a minute. But
They have the same interests as me. Like they like to do community service and, you know, like help our world to get better. Community service. I really like Legos. I like to sing and I like to dance. And like being an introvert is good, being an extrovert, it's like great, it's all great. But like you also need friends, and like friends can be there to like lift you up. And Quirky Buds really helps to achieve that.
okay, this is real short, but I just shared that because I love that she was like, I want to do community service with friends. I was like, wow, I didn't realize that's not necessarily something I would also do with friends, but that is something for sure. Okay. And that's the majority of my presentation, but I would love to have a discussion with y'all now if anybody has any thoughts or questions.
Thank you, Caroline.
Thank you for having me.
Is it Caroline or Carolyn?
Caroline, but you know, my grandma always called me Carolyn, so I respond to either.
Okay. Caroline. I'm kind of curious, can you show us your website?
Yes, of course.
But I wanted to say that I mean, Autism Tree is built upon relationships, one-on-one, you know, one family at a time. And with the influx of families that we have, we're trying to keep up with it. So I think it's so wonderful to see. I mean, we're built by all of our program directors are volunteers, right? They're people who just have a passion for Autism Tree, or they have the heart connection. That's what we say. And they just want to love on our families. And that's why they run a program. And that's how we're able to do so much in the community in person. But I love this as a tool. I think it's such a nice complement to like Autism Tree's programs. It's, you know, it's an online tool for those parents who are like, my kid hasn't been clicking with anybody, which I get those same questions all the time. Is like, do you know somebody in my area who I could, you know, connect with? And usually I have to do it personally, you know, one-on-one, which I love. But this is such a great tool for them to really empower themselves and find a bud that's in their area and take that next step. And so I'm just so grateful that you exist, and this is such a genius
Thank you. Yeah, I feel like to your point, right? Like there's so much, and y'all are doing such wonderful like support and the opportunity to connect with these larger groups, and just having like, yeah, I feel like so many times what I experienced in support groups, leading support groups or things like that, where parents then like swapping contact information, and I'm like, this is awesome. To then have somebody else outside of those moments, like if you're having I don't know, a bad day on a Tuesday, and you're just like, man, I want to talk to somebody as a caregiver or as a teenager, right? It's just nice to know that there's somebody you can reach out to. So yeah, I think it's been crazy to me to see this community grow, because there will be times like I recently had someone signed up outside of London, outside of like Nottingham or something. And I was like, I have no idea how this person heard about this. And I asked, but they didn't fill that part out. And I just was like, wow, like this is cool to see this grow and spread in a way that, I didn't realize. I knew there was a need near where I was, but I didn't know there was like a need kind of really even across the pond, I guess, as they say. So
That's amazing.
yeah, that was cool. They were virtual only, which was good.
And how do you send email, or how do you send updates? Is it via email, or is it like how does that work?
Yeah, so it's all been via email. With Sid's help, we have been talking about trying to make more of like a platform, or I have had some people sign up and say like, we really want to use our phones or like text. And that has not been a way that we have gone yet. One question I get often around that too is privacy or safety, right? And I think that's a big question overall when we talk about meeting people online. And so one of the ways that I'm trying to keep that kind of under wraps is to just share by email, and then to say, like, we're not going to share more personal I'm sorry, or not to share more personal information until you really exchange a few emails and get a sense of like, okay, this is a good match. And then trying to meet, especially if you meet in person, then meeting in person in a public place, right? Going with somebody, these kind of, more, what do I say, step-by-step kind of meeting somebody from that you meet online. With that too, I feel like, it is an interesting balance, because we're also used to texting that it is a little bit easier, but I also feel like having the emails is just is one more step. So you can see like when you sign up, especially for kids, I'll show y'all like here, right? This is just a Google form. I feel like people are always like, this is a Google form. I'm like, yeah, I know, but like this is how it's working, and this is also, it's free. So we don't have a lot of like fancy bells and whistles, but it's working. So
Yes,
anyway, that being
to add,
said,
I was just
what
saying, yes, agreed. It's a labor of love of Caroline, and why I love supporting so much, and why, nonprofits about to be formed. But that's, Rebecca, one of the things, or when I thought of Autism Tree, I thought, okay, if there is something that overlaps with a couple of organizations that helps a lot of people, then we can kind of have the conversation of what does a platform look like, what's a system, and I think we're getting closer and closer. So exciting for that.
Thank you, Sid. But yeah, this is obviously terms and conditions, kind of your usual, again, terms and conditions when you sign up on any like meetup, or I always reference a dating app, but I know not everyone has used those, but like a dating app of sorts. But this is, I just like to show this because really we're not asking for a lot of information, especially for a child. We're not asking for the child's name. We do ask for the child's date of birth, Bud's date of birth, both Bud's pronouns, and then primary way of communicating, just so that way if, an individual, especially with sign language, if that's a choice, we don't necessarily just match sign language and sign language, but if we have that as an option, it can be, a cool way to match. And then what are the main interests? So we haven't updated these in a minute, but I tried to update them based on what was coming in most frequently. And then, so you can check off as many of these as you want, and you can also click other and write whatever it is that you're really interested in. And then anything else you would like us to know. This is where sometimes people will share, like I said, their diagnosis or their child's diagnosis. Sometimes they'll write, you know, I really would prefer somebody, a same gender, same pronouns. That's something that I've gotten a couple times. And then the zip code, so that way we can know where you are and match people close to you. City and state, that just helps us. And then, how you heard about us. So, I was trying to see, oh, I skipped over this, but yeah, what is your preferred match type? So if you want in person only, we just do within 10 to 20 miles. So really try to do pretty close by. Or if you want both person and virtual, and then or virtual only. So, yeah, this is the child version. The adult version is very similar. There's different interest as mentioned. And then the caregiver version is more focused on if you're interested in what you're interested in talking about as a caregiver.
I love that. I love that you include the caregivers too.
Yeah, that was one again, as Sid mentioned, try to hear from people what they want. That was one that people were using like the adult form to sign up and say like, I'm a parent of, you know, an autistic child and I'm looking for somebody else near me. And so I was like, wait, this seems like something else that people want. Let's just make that a separate thing. So that way, you know, they can have a bud as well. I love too, like, I have gotten feedback on the name and I welcome the feedback. I am open to hearing it. I know quirky isn't everybody's favorite word, and you know, I hear that, but I personally, I chose the name Buds because I try to call everyone a bud. I used to like also just be like, hey bud, I call my dog Bud. Anyway, I love when people fill out the form, they'll write like my bud does, you know, likes history, or my bud likes playing, and I just like love, you know, the idea too of parents have started to like incorporate the word bud, which I feel like is I don't know, kind of fun for me.
I love it. Language is always evolving.
Yeah. And it's like they just picked up on it and I was like, okay, that works. So yeah.
I had a question about, you mentioned in the quotes that you shared from the parents, that she saw another mom post about their child. What is she referring to in like posting about?
Yeah, she did write that. That's like a direct quote. And I think she just used that language because I was even kind of like, I don't think that's what she meant, because the email that you'll get from us weekly says like, you know, it would be like, hey, Rebecca, you know, Caroline is a bud near you that also likes reading, or that also likes history. And so in the email, that's where she saw that, and probably messaged that mom. But yeah, I was like, she used the word post and I was like, it wasn't really a post, but I'm not going to change her language. So yeah.
I was just thinking like if you had like a social media, like a Facebook group or something like that. But
yeah, and I think that's a great idea because I do feel like sometimes even with the emails, we get so many emails. I know everybody does. And so I have had parents like message me and say like, I didn't get any, like, you know, we haven't gotten anything. And then I'll go back and say like, actually you've gotten, you know, like 10 matches. And they're like, oh, I didn't see that. So then I have to like redo it, which is totally fine. But I do feel like to your point, it might be easier eventually to have that as an option as well.
I love how grassroots this is, Carolyn.
Thank you.
We're very similar Autism Tree, where it's very grassroots and we're just trying to evolve every day. And you know, we have our 4 core values that Dana and I run through every day of embrace, connect, empower, create, and that's what we try to do. And we're the only staff and everybody is a volunteer. So I just love how you're rolling with it, you're evolving as well. And yeah, I just think it's wonderful. And I'd love anybody to say their thoughts. I know Terrence said something else. He said, thanks so much, Caroline, for sharing the presentation with us. I like that you showed us the rainbow, which is part of the LGBTQ, which could be pride and joy. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, that was really fascinating to learn about, you know, the LGBTQIA and how that intersects with autism. And I didn't know there were research papers out on that already. So that's fantastic.
Yeah. Kind of aligned right with this month. There was something else. Oh yeah, the only other thing I was just gonna say about that too, and Sid may roll his eyes at this, but I always, people always ask me like, well, what happens if you get like 1,000 signups overnight? And I'm like, it'll be fine. We'll make it work. You know what I mean? Because this just feels like that's the point. And so please feel free to share if you, have people that you think might be interested. I might be like texting Sid a lot if that happens, but that would be kind of a wonderful problem for us to have, because I do feel like, some people have been waiting. I have one little tiny bud. He's only 4 in Wisconsin. He was one of our buds of the month a couple months ago, and he's like the only one up there. So anyway, that's like it's just but his mom was like, no worries, we'll wait. Well, it'll come. So anyway, I'm like, the more the merrier. Like, some people have been waiting, so would love to get them, a bud.
Yeah. Sid said, we'll be okay as of next week. One feature's on the way.
Thanks, Sid.
This is very timely then.
Yes, exactly. Thoughts sharing with y'all. But yeah, is there anything else, or I don't know, any other feedback too? I'm always welcome to hear criticisms or constructive criticism if that's anybody has anything too. Oh, thank you, Karen.
I love it. I'll read it for the people watching the recording. She says, Caroline, you are joyful and have an incredible heart for others. You shine.
Thank you.
And Sid, I'd love to see your face again and welcome you to introduce yourself a little bit.
As I've just been talking about him.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm literally on the way to another meeting, so apologies for off the video, but I met Caroline through an old boss of mine at a startup in Austin. I now live in San Diego, and that's how I met Rebecca and the wonderful organization of Autism Tree. But I work on a few, technology startups, and I just think about, the skills I've developed and I work on, I feel like it should be applied to something as, I think, important as sort of creating more friendship and inclusivity and accommodation for people. So that's sort of what drives me to help Caroline and be part of this community. And I certainly, have discovered my own, neurodivergence as I've gotten older, and what friendship has meant to me, and also why I'm so passionate about this as well.
Sid, I want to say hello. I hope I meet you in San Diego. I echo everything Rebecca already said, Caroline, in terms of this synergy between what you're doing and the community that we've been building. Really, it's a family for 21 years. I think it was 5 years in, that was one of my favorite things that happened as the founder of Autism Tree, is we were making a video, and I had a number of different people that were on our core team come in to speak on the 5-year video. And it was such a blessing. I was watching each one of them, and without me prompting them or telling them what to say, they all in their own authentic ways organically said that Autism Tree was their family. And I just was like, wow, that's really special. And so I just want to welcome you, Caroline and Sid, into the Autism Tree family, and say, I'm very touched seeing a young person like yourself take on building something, and grateful, Sid, that you are supporting Caroline. And I think that, there's no accidents. Every single week, everything happens the way it's supposed to. And I didn't always have the capacity to be present to see that. That took me at least 10 years before we had a full-time person. And so that's one thing that Rebecca and I feel really good at. And I feel like it took way over 10 years, but we are present together every day. And there are times when you cannot be present as a parent, as an individual, as a founder. You can't be present when your plate is overflowing. So I spent large percentage of my life not present. And what that looks like is like, you can't see your blessings, and you're just kind of trying to breathe and get out of bed and like do your best. And so while we're over here doing our best, we have been around 21 years, so we can finally the last 10 years be present. And some days, you know, we feel like, uh-oh, that's sliding away from us because we're being slammed, as you, Rebecca, articulated, with so many families. And, you know, we just, like you are, Caroline, and Sid, doing the very best that you can. And I think the biggest thing that I want to share with everyone is how Autism Tree exists because it's a pay it forward model. When you do not charge people, then people have to realize it's pay it forward. You're not paying for it, so that means you have to pay it forward. The fact that I would ever even have to say that makes me a little bit sad, but that is how Autism Tree was built. It's like, we're not going to charge you. I'm not going to charge you to help you, but like, you have to help the next person. I mean, it's imperative. And so I think before the pandemic, we were really struggling because people, you know, wouldn't show up, and we have volunteers, and, you know, it was really getting pretty intense with like, what is happening to our pay it forward model? And on a positive, I would say that the pandemic brought everyone back to gratitude, that when you go out, because it's a privilege now to go out after the pandemic, and you're like, wow, that person's volunteering and I'm not having to pay for this. And what can I do to contribute to this, you know, to this family, to this organization? So I think somehow I'm hopeful, maybe Sid, because of your AI genius there, that, you know, there can be some sort of a synergy between what you're doing and what we're doing, because I know Rebecca jumped on it, and I was too. As soon as I saw your Bud of the Month saying she likes to dance and she's so adorable, I was thinking, oh, we have, you know, our dance online. She can jump on, and she looks like she might enjoy that. So somehow, maybe Sid, that can happen when you guys see that someone likes to do Lego or dance in particular. They could probably jump on board with Autism Tree. And
That was the goal. When I saw Rebecca at the beach cleanup, I thought, aha, there's a connection to be made here. And as fate would have it, I'm in La Jolla, so not far from you guys.
oh, fantastic.
We could meet
Well,
up.
you know, Sid, it's really funny because, you know, obviously we've been short staffed since last November, but before the pandemic, we used to have a monthly core team meeting, and it's something that we all really, really loved because it was a way to bring us together in person. We'd have a dinner, and it was really easy for new people like you, Sid, to come in, and then I'd get to meet you, and you get to find out like what we're working on. And you know, it was a lot of work on top of work. So I'm not the one that was really the gung ho. But then when I'd get there, I'd always be the last person to leave. And I had this moment, Sid, all because of you being in San Diego, where I'm like, oh gosh, we need to have a core team meeting so I can meet people like Sid again, you know, in person. Because I love Lunch and Learn so much. For starters, I get to see Jeff in Massachusetts every week, Jeff. I don't take that for granted. And I get to see Karen Wright every week and whoever else comes on. But sometimes, you know, I don't take for granted that I get to usually see Karen and Jeff weekly, and that alone is worth so much to me. But to stay on point, Carolyn, I just want to let you know that you know, it's really courageous what you've done. And you know, I hope you know the Autism Tree family is here to just say, keep going, and whatever we can do to keep encouraging you, please, you know we're here for you.
Thank you so much. Yeah. I mean, the things you just said are so powerful, I think, too, like hearing that the family piece, and then, like you said, the pay it forward model, because I do think COVID really did kind of bring back that, or it just like threw a little bit in everyone's face that we need a community, and like we need a strong community, I think, more than we were kind of getting away from. So I really, yeah, I think that's so awesome. And also I was like, oh my gosh, yes, I'm gonna email your adaptive dance program right now to our Bud of the Month.
Oh,
Because,
good.
yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Let's
I was like, oh, great idea. She will love that. Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
communicate to us, because maybe there's a way, if one of your buds shows about being at Autism Tree, we can extra push that out, you know?
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, it's a great idea.
Yeah, and I feel like you said something that, oh, I know the last thing I wanted to share is we started doing the lunch and learns before the schools closed during the pandemic. And I remember numbers of people over the course of the first year for sure, who were neurodiverse, saying, wow, now the world more understands how we feel, isolated. And that used to bring tears to my eyes constantly to think about that, you know? And I think that you're, you know, a pioneer of really trying to help that. But that came out a lot in our lunch and learns for the first year for sure. It was a constant thing. And I think that it was really quite sweet because it's a way for we were really focused on being positive and staying connected and in gratitude. And it really was that. And at the same time, being very real with each other. And so I think that, you know, I think that in a way it was a positive for neurodiverse people to feel like, oh, this is really validating to see it's hard for people all over the world, you know?
Yeah.
So I think your platform really speaks to that, of helping with that. So that's fantastic.
Thank you. Yeah. I know.
Well, if anyone doesn't have any, oh, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
I know, I was just gonna say, I'm happy to share. I realized I stopped sharing, but Rebecca, if you want, or however you all share this out, like I'd be happy to, if you want to attach my email to it, like if anybody has any questions, or I mean, my email is also on the website, but I'm happy to always be available if people have like thoughts or whatnot.
Yes.
Yeah.
We definitely will. You will use this as a resource, and we do every week. Honestly, we share out our, what depend upon the topic, whether it's for the next speaker or a family or a caregiver or parents. We use these lunch and learns constantly. It's such a gift. It's like our library. So we will
I know.
definitely
I'm like, I gotta be on some more of these now in the future too. Just
yeah.
so I'll be back. Yeah.
Well, we always do a picture at the end, and we lost a couple people, so I'm sorry for that. Let's all, if you don't mind, whoever can show their beautiful face, let's all do our photo with Caroline.
Yay, Sid.
I location change, that's all. That's
Hi, Sid.
Awesome. Hi, Kimberly. Okay, great. Ready? 1, 2, 3. Perfect.
It was really great to meet you, Caroline and
Thank
Sid,
you.
and it's
Thank
great
you
to
so
see
much.
everybody. Have a beautiful, beautiful day.
Nice to meet you, Caroline.
Nice to meet you, Caroline.
guys. Thank you
Rebecca,
so
care,
stay
much.
guys.
on with me.
Have a good one.
Bye, y'all.
Bye, Terrence. Bye,
Bye, Dana.
Karen.